වීවා එකතුණු උකුතේ එකක
රස උපරිමයි.
හරිම සුළුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Saturday the 4th of February 2023. Celebrations. Sri Lanka proudly celebrates its 75th Independence Day.
නොහැක්කක් නොමැත ආදර්ශ පාඨය කරගත්
පාලියේ අභිමානවන්තයි ගමනක් ගන්න ආකාරය ඔබේ දකින්නේ.
All for one will enable maximum division of power in a unitary state, says President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Swift measures. China urges IMF to fully consider the urgency of the situation in Sri Lanka and provide loan support.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Andrew Bernard.
උසස් පෙළට පසු කොලිෆයි වෙමු ඉහළට යමු ජය අරගමු ප්‍රොමෝෂන් එකට ඊළඟ දාගත්තොත් ඩිග්‍රිය ගොඩ
ජාතික කළමනාකරන ආයතනය NIPM වෙතින් රාජ්‍ය වගකීම සහ ලෝපිළිගත් උපාධියක් තරුණ ඔබට Be smart, be qualified, be recognized with NIPM ජාතික වැවිලි සරසවිය.
Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. In your top story for tonight, the 75th Independence Day celebration was held today under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe at the Galle Face. The celebration was graced by many foreign dignitaries, state officials, distinguished officers of the Tri-Forces and the police, and several other special invitees. This year's Independence Day celebration takes off the worst financial crisis Sri Lanka has faced since it gained independence from the British in 1948.
The 75th Independence Day celebration of Sri Lanka was held at Galle Face under the theme Namo Namo Mata, a big step towards a century, under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe and Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena. Following the arrival of the invitees, the commanders of the Tri-Forces and the police, the Secretary of Defence, the Chief Justice and the Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena arrived at Galle Face for the Independence Day celebration.
ශ්‍රී ලංකා ප්‍රජාතාන්ත්‍රික සමාජවාදී ජනරජයේ ගෞරවග්‍රාමාත්‍ය දිනේෂ් ගුණවර්ධන මැතිතුමාගේ පැමිණීම.
A number of foreign ambassadors, state officials and dignitaries graced this year's Independence Day celebration, including Secretary General of the Commonwealth Patricia Scotland KC.
Government of Bhutan, Honorable Patricia Scotland KC.
However, leader of the opposition Sajith Premadasa, who rejected the official invitation extended to him for the Independence Day celebration, was not seen present during the event. Subsequent to the arrival of all invitees, President Ranil Wickremesinghe and First Lady Maitri Wickremesinghe arrived at Galle Face for the celebration.
Honorable President of Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe and Mrs. Maitri Wickremesinghe.
The Independence Day celebration commenced with the hoisting of the national flag by the President. A moment of silence was then observed in remembrance of all lives lost in service of the country. Following the moment of silence, the President took the salute of the Tri-Forces, police and others from the main days. A customary 21-round gun salute was also made during the occasion.
Police, civil பாதுகாப்பு திணைக்களத்தினரதும் மரியாதை
You now witness the arrival of the Tri-Forces band ceremonially parading up
the ceremonial parade.
இப்போது நீங்கள் திரையில் காண்பது
Sri Lanka Signal Corps, which commenced in the
කමාන්ඩෝ රෙජිමේන්තුවයි නොහැක්කක් නොමැත ආදර්ශ පාඨය කරගත් කමාන්ඩෝ රෙජිමේන්තු කණ්ඩයට අණ දෙන්නේ මේජර් ධනුෂ්ක පතිරණ ශ්‍රී ලංකා නාවික හමුදාවයි මෙම අභිමානවත් සම්මාන පෙළපාලිය සඳහා දැන් සිය සම්මානය දැන් ආචාර්යවරුන්ට නමන්නේ
The Sri Lanka Air Force joined the 75th Independence Day celebration with helicopters and fighter jets flying over Galle Face.
විමානපඩයින් කොඩිය ඒදී
Whitewell වර්ගයේ ගුවන් යාන ඔබ දකින්න. ගුවන් හමුදා ආචාර්ය පෙළපාලියේ අභිමානවත් අයුරින් ගමන් ගන්න ආකාරය ඔබ මේ දකින්නේ.
The police and the special task force also joined the Independence Day parade.
පස්වන පොලිස්පතිවරයා ලෙස චන්දන වික්‍රමරත්න මහතා
ගන්න දෙනු ලබන ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොලිස් බලයනිය ගමන් කරනවා. විශේෂ කාර්ය බලකාය ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමා වෙත සිය උත්තමාචාරය දක්වමින් අභිමානයෙන් යුතුව එක්වන අවස්ථාව.
දශක 3ක් පුරාවට පැවති කුරිරු යුද්ධය නිමා කරන්නට තම ජීවිත පරදුවට තබමින් අප ජීවිත ආරක්ෂා කරන්නට ඔවුන් කළ මහා කැපකිරීම අපට කිසිදා අමතක කළ නොහැක.
One of the main highlights of the day's proceedings was the aerial parachute jumps by Triforces and Special Task Force personnel.
ප්‍රෞඩ ඉතිහාසයක් ඇති ශ්‍රී ලංකා යුද්ධ හමුදාව පැරෂුට් පැනීම හඳුන්වා දුන් කමාන්ඩෝ රෙජිමේන්තුවේ පුරෝගාමීන් ඉතිහාසයේ සිට මේ දක්වා පැරෂුට් පැනීමේ ත්‍රිවිධ හමුදාව තුළට ව්‍යාප්ත කරවීම තම හැකියාවන් වර්ධනය කරමින් යුදමය හා සංදර්ශන හැකියාවන් මනා ලෙස පිළිබිඹු කරමින් මේ මොහොතේදී අභිමානවත් ලෙස ශ්‍රී ලංකා ජාතික දජය සහිත පැරෂුටයකින්
පෙන්ඩු මේ වීරයින් දැන් ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමන් වෙත තමන්ගේ උත්තමාචාරය පුද කරන අවස්ථාව.
The day's proceedings officially ended with the singing of the national anthem in Tamil.
Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe called on all sectors of society to band together in order to emerge triumphant from this short period of time where the people will have to face severe hardships. The head of state went on to say that everyone in the country is just as responsible for the current state of the country as almost everyone who cast their vote and used the votes of the people, used it for personal gains and not for the benefit of the country in mind. As such, he urged the people to bear this short, painful period as it wouldn't last long.
මීට අවුරුදු 75කට කලින් ලංකාවට නිදහස ලැබුණු අවස්ථාවේ
When Sri Lanka got its independence 75 years ago, the London Times newspaper said they expect to see Sri Lanka becoming the Switzerland of the East. However, what has happened to us at present? Let's talk the truth. We are all responsible to the current situation in the country. We were divided after independence. We divided ourselves into race, religion and region. Lies were told at election instead of the truth. Politicians who told the truth were rejected by the people. Those who told lies of comfort received more appreciation. We were stuck in politics based on promises. For most part of it, we didn't vote for the country. We did it to get a job for ourselves. We voted to get a tender passed. We worked for political candidates with personal gains in mind. For the most part, we didn't ask votes for the country. It was to earn a little more. We were trapped by promises. We took more loans to fulfill political promises. Many of the loans we took were for consumption and not investment. However, the Buddha preached that loans should be taken for investment and not for consumption. There may be people who love to continue with this wound, but I don't like that. Let's do an operation and cure this wound. This is difficult, painful and challenging. However, if we experience that pain and suffering for a short period of time, we will be able to permanently cure this wound. We cannot come out of this crisis through some of the shortcuts that are shown by political parties. There is only one ladder to help us come out of this pit that we're in. Remember that. If this ladder is cast aside for political needs, we won't have a country. I told in advance that the first 6 months of this year will be challenging. We will have to face this challenging time, even if we like it or not. The youth in this country has been expecting to see a system change in the country for a long time. To this extent, my government has embarked on a new path of reform. Even though some decisions taken in this regard might be painful, we will have to take these steps to come out of the crisis. We are successfully completing the difficult challenges that we need to undergo in order to get the support of the IMF. We expect to get their approval in the near future. We cannot be satisfied by merely strengthening the economy. We need to make a change to the entire system. We need to take measures as quickly as possible in order to solve the problems of the people in the north and the east. We have appointed a subcommittee in order to deal with this situation. All the decisions and the timeline of when and how the plans will be executed will be sent to all the political parties. They will be carried out based on their ideas as well. We have given priority to the release of land and the release of prisoners. Steps will also be taken for the maximum division of power in a unitary state. However, we will not let this country divide under any circumstance. I am not trying to give painkillers to deal with the symptoms that are visible on the surface, but rather to cure the source. I am aware that a majority of the decisions I have had to take since I became the president have been unpopular. However, because of those decisions, no citizen of this country is dying from dehydration from waiting in fuel queues. No one is starving without LP gas. No one is cursing due to the lack of fertilizer. As such, despite the obstacles created by anarchist political forces, I will carry out this new reform program with the majority of people who love this country. As such, I ask all parties to join us in order to come triumphant out of this difficult time.
ඒ නිසා මේ දුෂ්කර අවධිය ජය ගැනීමට එක්වන ලෙස මම සියලු පාර්ශ්වයන්ගෙන්ම ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
Now, China called on the International Monetary Fund to take full consideration of the urgency of the situation in Sri Lanka and provide loan support as soon as possible to relieve the country's liquidity strain. The spokesperson of the Chinese Foreign Ministry made this remark yesterday. She added that China would coordinate with commercial creditors, including the international sovereign bond holders and the multilateral creditors, to provide Sri Lanka with debt treatment in an equal and comparable manner. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs yesterday responded to a question regarding the letter of assurances it had provided Sri Lanka last month so as to help the island nation proceed with the IMF bailout package. During the daily media briefing of the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, spokesperson Mao Ning said the Export-Import Bank of China provided a financing support document to the Ministry of Finance of Sri Lanka, saying the bank is going to provide an extension on the debt service due in 2022 and 2023. This, she added, would mean that Sri Lanka won't have to repay the principal and interest due to the bank's loans during the above-mentioned period. Mao stated that the Exim Bank has expressed its willingness to have friendly consultation with Sri Lanka regarding medium and long-term debt treatment in this window period. She noted that while the bank will also continuously call on commercial creditors, including the international sovereign bond holders, to provide debt treatment in an equally comparable manner. The Chinese spokesperson went on to say that the financing support document aimed at combining the immediate contingency measure and medium and long-term debt treatment to rapidly, effectively and truly resolve Sri Lanka's debt issue. She also stated that this speaks of China's sincerity and action to support Sri Lanka's efforts to achieve debt sustainability. Meanwhile, spokesperson Mao said that China calls on all other creditors of Sri Lanka, especially multilateral creditors, to take synchronized similar steps to give effective, strong support to Sri Lanka in order to help the country emerge from its default status at an early date and eventually work out an arrangement for Sri Lanka to achieve medium and long-term debt sustainability. China also calls on the IMF to take into full consideration the urgency of the situation in Sri Lanka and provide loan support as soon as possible to relieve the country's liquidity strain. She reiterated that going forward, China will continue to support relevant financial institutions in actively working out the debt treatment, and that they will work with countries and international financial institutions to help ease Sri Lanka's debt situation. Now, a total of 622 prisoners were released on presidential pardon today in view of the 75th Independence Day of Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden and US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Chung, also extended wishes to Sri Lanka on its 75th Independence Day.
US President Joe Biden says he looks forward to strengthening and deepening the cordial bilateral relationships with Sri Lanka even further. He made this remark in a warmly worded letter of felicitation which conveyed his best wishes to his Sri Lankan counterpart Ranil Wickremesinghe and the people of Sri Lanka on the occasion of the 75th anniversary of Sri Lankan independence. The US President also said that he hopes to continue to advance the shared values and vision for a peaceful, prosperous and secure future for the people of the two countries. He pointed out that this milestone independence anniversary coincides with 75 years of diplomatic relations between the United States and Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, US Ambassador to Sri Lanka Julie Chung also extended her wishes in view of Sri Lanka's 75th Independence Day celebration.
On behalf of the American people and my colleagues here at the U.S. Embassy, Colombo, I offer heartfelt congratulations to the government and people of Sri Lanka on this momentous occasion, the 75th anniversary of your independence and our 75 years of diplomatic relations. In these challenging times, the U.S. has stood by Sri Lanka with over $240 million in new assistance last year, like fertilizer for farmers, food for school children, and loans for small businesses. We value Sri Lanka's partnership and the resilience of its people, and we welcome progress the country continues to make to emerge from the current crisis. We reaffirm our continued support and look forward to many more years of people, progress, and partnership.
The Indian High Commissioner of Sri Lanka, Gopal Bagli, also extended wishes to Sri Lanka. Releasing a video statement, the Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka also extended heartfelt congratulations to Sri Lanka on its 75th Independence Day celebration. The EU also wished Sri Lanka on its 75th Independence Day celebration while stating that the EU looks forward to another year of strong EU-Sri Lanka relations. Meanwhile, the Chinese President Xi Jinping and top officials of the government also extended best wishes and warm congratulations to the Sri Lankan President, Prime Minister and Foreign Minister. Taking to Twitter, the British High Commission in Colombo wished Sri Lanka on its 75th Independence Day by sending their best wishes to all friends and followers in Sri Lanka and around the world. Furthermore, floral tribute was paid to the statue of Sri Lanka's first Prime Minister D.S. Senanayake in parallel to the 75th Independence Day celebration. This event was graced by Minister of Justice Wijayadasa Rajapaksa, former Speaker of Parliament Karu Jayasuriya and Mayor of Colombo Rosi Senanayake. Meanwhile, a total of 622 prisoners were released on presidential pardon today in view of the 75th Independence Day of Sri Lanka.
No protest against the 75th Independence Day was launched last evening in Maradana. Water cannons and tear gas were fired by the police near the Elphinstone Theatre in Maradana last night in an attempt to disperse a group of protesters who were staging a protest in the vicinity. A tense situation arose after police officers attempted to disperse the protesters despite them having made aware of the court order issued earlier that day against holding of any protest in view of the 75th Independence Day celebration. However, at around 10 p.m., a clash erupted between the protesters and an unknown group of people who tried to attack the protesters. During the clash, several individuals were apprehended by the police. Meanwhile, protesters were seen in several other areas, also in Colombo. The chairman of the Lanka Coal Company has requested for a fund of $12.32 million from the Minister of Power and Energy. Accordingly, the funds amounting to 4.56 billion rupees were requested by Shehan Sumanasekara from Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Vijayasekara for the purchase of coal power required to power the country's power plants. Now, the Russian ambassador in Colombo, Levan Jagaryan, called on all Russian tourists to visit Sri Lanka, a friendly and welcoming nation, given that they're unable to travel to Europe. Speaking to Indivari Amawata at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24, he went on to say that Russia will always take steps to help the friendly nations, among which Sri Lanka holds a place, and to which extent the consul generals of certain Russian cities have requested to open stores that would exclusively sell Sri Lankan products such as tea and its spices.
There have been questions over why the delay is, or where the challenges are in ironing out a way that Sri Lanka can import, especially when Sri Lanka is trying to manage the dollar reserves and has import restrictions. So how can Russia come in to help here?
One of the ways we are helping Sri Lanka, it's a huge number of Russian tourists who come here. We are number one. 25% of all foreign tourists coming here are Russians. Since the resumption of direct flights from 4 Russian cities, Moscow, St. Petersburg, Novosibirsk and Krasnoyarsk, they come here, enjoy and spend money. And as far as I know, so far, just more than 38,000 Russian tourists have already visited Sri Lanka by 118 direct flights. And this process will continue. I would like to assure you that fortunately, Russians have no possibility to go to Europe. Once again, they are not welcome in Europe for well-known reasons. That's why my message to all Russians is don't go to Europe. Come here to friendly Sri Lanka and spend your money here. Also, I would like to add that we now are witnessing the process of started to visit the representatives of different Russian regions to Sri Lanka. Recently, there was a big delegation from Sverdlovsk region. It's in the Urals, very heart of Russia, between Asia and Europe. Vice Governor was the head of delegation, and they met some high-ranking officials here discussing some problems. And you have honorable consul in Russia. You have many places, in many Russian cities, honorable consuls. And I urged the Russian honorable consul in Yekaterinburg city, the, let's say, center of this Ural region. He is the owner of some trading malls, to open some shops to sell only Sri Lankan goods. For example, tea, first of all tea and spices, of course. And he promised to do this job, and I will put it under my personal control.
How do we work to expand trade relations here, especially when there is Russia and supply chain constraints there at the same time? So how do we make a link between Sri Lanka and Russia?
I know many Sri Lankan businessmen who work with Russia for a long time, and they now know how to do their business. Now a large number of Sri Lankan businessmen are going to visit Russia very soon. Just a few days ago they have got Russian visa, and they will be traveling to participate in some exhibitions in the Russian Federation. So now Sri Lanka is among our friendly countries. You know that we don't have any conflicts with unfriendly countries. You understand which countries do I mean? Unfriendly countries for us. European Union, USA, Australia, Canada, New Zealand. That's why our focus is on friendly countries. Among them, Sri Lanka, of course.
Now, Western economies agreed new price caps yesterday on Russia's exports of oil products that US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said would build on the crude oil cap set in December and further limit Russia's oil revenues while keeping global energy markets supplied. The oil price caps follow the banning of key services from the West to Russia pertaining to the supply of oil around the world.
The coalition imposing the measures, the group of 7 economies, the EU and Australia, set the new price caps at $100 per barrel on products that trade at a premium to crude, principally diesel, and $45 per barrel for products that trade at a discount. The price caps, together with the European Union ban on Russian oil product imports that also comes into force tomorrow, seek to limit Moscow's ability to fund its war in Ukraine, which began nearly a year ago. In a statement, Yellen said the price cap set will now serve a critical role in the global coalition's work to degrade Russia's ability to prosecute its illegal war. The move followed the coalition's banning of the use of Western-supplied maritime insurance, finance and brokering for seaborne Russian crude oil priced above $60 per barrel on the 5th of December onwards. Yellen said the sanctions and the price caps are forcing Russian President Vladimir Putin to choose between funding his brutal war or propping up his struggling economy. Russia's monthly budget revenues from oil and gas fell in January to their lowest level since August 2020 under the impact of Western sanctions on its most lucrative export.
Now, Tesla founder Elon Musk has been cleared of wrongdoing for a tweet in which he said he had funding secured to take the electric car maker private. An economist hired by the shareholders who filed the action against Musk revealed that the shareholder loss due to the aftermath of the tweet was $12 billion.
Musk faced a class action lawsuit filed on behalf of Tesla shareholders who argued he misled them with his posts in August 2018. The proposed $72 billion buyout never materialized. If the San Francisco jury had found Musk liable, he could have been ordered to pay billions of dollars in damages. It took the 9 jurors less than 2 hours to reach the verdict yesterday afternoon. Musk, who had wanted the trial moved to Texas, where Tesla is based, arguing he could not get a fair trial in San Francisco, welcomed the outcome. Taking to Twitter, the social media platform he bought for $44 billion last October, he posted that he is deeply appreciative of the jury's unanimous finding of innocence in the Tesla 420 take-private case. Central to the lawsuit was Musk's tweet on the 7th of August 2018 where he stated that he was considering taking Tesla private. The stock price surged after the tweet but fell back again within days as it became clear the deal would not go through. Investor losses were calculated as high as $12 billion according to an economist hired by the shareholders. During the 3-week trial, Musk, who also leads SpaceX and Twitter, had argued he thought he had a verbal commitment from Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund for the deal.
And that's all the news we have for this evening. Join us again tomorrow for the very latest news at the very same time. Have a pleasant evening and good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.